All right, we are just about ready to go here. You guys ready? Graph paper people on this Monday morning. I'm not expecting to get any visitors or watchers here. I didn't announce that I was going live or anything. And so I probably won't be paying attention to the screen or responding to any viewers. That being said, welcome to class. And why am I live today? Well, here's the thing. I'm kind of pressed for time. I wanted to make a video to rebuild one of my old videos where I ramble on a lot, and so I just got on my computer to try to make that. We tried it all day Sunday, and I got sidetracked and everything else. Today I'm on the project, and it's too. I need a script, and I have to sit down and write a script because my videos end up rambling, like this one is starting to. But to write a script is very long, and I just thought, this is going to eat up my entire day, and I have a ton of other things to do. So once again, if I don't go live now and just get on and start explaining things, I'm going to spend another day going, man, my audience, I got all those new subscribers yesterday, and I'm not even making any videos, man. I'm going to lose everybody, and it just bugs the hell out of me and eats me up. So, and I'm not happy with my live videos because I tend to ramble and I don't get to the point. But I've updated my equipment. I've got picture in picture now, and I've got my sound, I think, a little more balanced out, and I really want to get to making some new videos for this channel. So here we go. I'm going to do this today live. And what we're going to do is rebuild a really lengthy video I have, but I think has some great information in it, but it's hidden behind some rambling and muffled voice due to this pretty old equipment here I got. And I want to rebuild it, remake it here. And I just lost my point, whatever I was saying about it. So I'm just going to make it live about that today. But it's about getting around your fretboard anywhere, from any direction, feeling comfortable anywhere you are on the fretboard. And there's pretty much two key cores of advice that, or basically rules of the show, that you employ these two concepts and you can get across the fretboard anywhere, anytime, and during an improv in any major scale mode, minor scale mode, or just major or minor scale. And when your red flags go off right there and say, oh, boring, he said major scale, what about harmonic minor, what about melodic minor? Let's talk about that for a quick second. First of all, when major scale sounded boring to you, remember, think about your favorite band. Are you thinking Dream Theater? Are you thinking Tom Petty? Are you thinking something on a pop radio station? That's mostly on a country radio station, perhaps. You are dealing with a ton in a virtual shit ton of major scale music. So rest assured, this is going to give you years and years of enjoyment. It's the first step that you need, because when it comes to other scales, any other scale, there's thousands of them, and some of the most other popular music you hear that's stretching out from the major scale, that's getting more complex, like jazz, is going to be involving mostly melodic minor scale. A lot of times versions of or modes of the harmonic minor scale and modes of melodic minor, and all those concepts, basically that scale system, all those concepts come from those scale systems, and those scale systems are basically derivatives of the major scale system. So once you master the major scale system, which is the more complex one on the fretboard, the other ones are a little easier because they tend to be more symmetrical in nature and have have their own methods of memorization you can use to noodle around the fretboard with them. But anyways, for your improvs, you're doing major scale stuff. So let's get down to brass tacks here then. What are two keys? Let me give you the two keys right away, and then we'll just kind of work through exactly how they all work. The two major... Sorry about this noise here. The two major keys are this. It's all about... There's a mental key. when you're in one spot on you pick you need to improv, and all you know is a pentatonic shape that you fit up over, and you find a place that it works. And okay, so you're in the pentatonic shape, but you're getting kind of boring, but you don't want to venture out across the fretboard. You wish you could do something wild and daring, work, wildly all the way up, but you just don't know how. It's all a gray area because it's not familiar territory. So it's just like you're in a town and you're trying to get across town, but you don't have a map, you don't know how, and how are you going to get there? Or you're lost in a forest. Where are you going to go? Which direction? What's the right way? What's the wrong way? So same thing applies to your guitar. Unfamiliar territory is unfamiliar territory. So the way to get comfortable to go anywhere, anytime on your fretboard is to get familiar with the territory. To have, like, your own home neighborhood that you've lived in for 20 years, you can't get lost in that, right? But at the same time, there's somewhat of a boredom once you get really familiar with the place. You always want those new places. Well, I think that's one concept right there that keeps people from understanding understanding their fretboard, is that there's a fear of boredom. If you master the fretboard, what if you get bored with it? What if now okay, it's all this, it's all that, all right, now it's no fun anymore? I disagree. I did worry about that myself, and that was kept me back a whole bunch of years from learning some pretty simple stuff here. Also, some teachers who weren't teaching me the way I really needed to see the picture here. But anyways, not wanting to be familiar with the scale or with the fretboard because of boredom, the fear of being bored of it, is not what will happen. You'll become enabled to create all these new emotions, because that's what the modes of the major scale are. They're moods. Modes are moods. Moods are emotions. Emotions are what you're trying to express with your instrument here. So it all works hand in hand, and it basically blossoms out into this endless rabbit holes of new areas to explore. You will never get bored mastering your fretboard. So let's get bored. Let's get unbored by getting bored. Does that make sense? So let's get real familiar with our territory here. Now, here's the cool thing about the familiarness, the final 2 points here. Number one, there's only two, maybe three, but three is really a combination of one and two. There's only two major places you could be at any given time on the fretboard when you're soloing. You can be in over this spot or over that spot, one or two. Isn't that easy? How easy is it to be familiar with basically two rooms? Think of it, you're trying to understand this house that's previously been a dark mansion that's been scary, and you don't know where the next step is and where you might fall through a hole or down a flight of stairs. But someone's turning on all the lights and showing you that's basically just a house and a garage. A house and a garage. So what can I mean? So there's two parts to this fretboard. Now, here's the final kicker. When we imagine a house and a garage, they may be connected, but they're still two separate rooms, and they mostly are. But here's the key. It's basically you're always in the same house. So once you're in the garage, you're basically one step away from being inside the house. When you're in the house, you're one step away from being in the garage. So in other words, the analogy falls apart where in a house you could be 50 steps away from the door to the garage, but on the guitar fretboard, you're these rooms that you're in, can call them rooms. The two rooms that you're in, once you're in one room, guess what? You always have a foot in the other room. So once you're in one shape, you're always in the other shape. Now, stop that right there. Repeat that 50 times in your head, because it doesn't seem like this is true. But once I detailed this on the graph and I burned it into my brain, I realized what the simple trick was to getting across the fretboard, and it was that once you're in one room, you're in the other room. Or once you're in one shape, you're in the other shape. So let's start calling it shapes. That'll make more sense. Here is the first shape you're going to learn, the most basic core of the fretboard. So as we know, these squares represent notes. For example, here we have 12, a bracket of 12 squares in a row representing the chromatic scale. You're going to hear it on the keyboard, piano keyboard, and I'm not going to lift this camera up to avoid ruining the angle, but you can sort of see me here. C to shining C right there in the 12 notes that we in the Western scale have divided up. So we've got basically C, and we're going to just put a black key right there. That's the C sharp, D flat, and same with D sharp, E flat. And let's notice something here, that something important is going to come up right here, that E and F don't have a black note in between them. We chose C because it does something like this. It basically blacks out, puts all the sharp, flat keys into the black keys. So it gives us a nice visual. That's what the keyboard does. So a guitarist should know keyboard, because music theory gets way easier once you know the keyboard. Okay. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Look at that. Did I write C in there? I did that earlier too on a practice video, and I did it again. Okay. F, G, A, B. F gab, C, D, E, and F gab. Something handy to remember later on. C, D, and F gab. But anyways, let's hear just those notes singled out. So basically, we've realized that there's basically 12 tones that go from C to C. Why are there 12? Because that's how we've divided it up. And those don't make music because, well, there's just, there's no structure to it. So basically, that's just a whole bunch of lumber. And if we're going to be making analogies to places, it's just a random pile of everything. And there's no structure to it. So now if we get some structure, and what we do is we separate out some tones. We basically play the first tone, any tone, of 12 tones. Select 12 anywhere. Doesn't have to be C, D, E. The reason we're using C, D, E is because as notes have been given names, certain frequencies have been given names. The 7 of them have been given whole names, and 5 of them have been given in-between names. That's because we've created the major scale in just the way we've lettered the alphabet of 12 tones. So if that made any sense, it eventually could make sense to you, and maybe my language, my semantics there just confused the hell out of it. But all I really mean is, sorry for the sloppiness there. But anyways, the point I'm getting at is there's a half step here that's very important. The bits of the major scale are surrounded. There's basically 3 whole tones and 4 whole tones here, butted up to each other with a half step in between, and that creates this shape on the guitar. Let me get down to B, C, E, F, like on the piano. So that would be basically where the B meets the C and the E meets the F. Now, every major scale is shaped like this. The example uses the whole... if you want to always use the white keys and not confuse yourself with half steps, you start on C, but it doesn't have to. All you need to do is take any 12 and arrange them so you go skip, skip, then don't skip, 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 skip for 4 of those, and don't skip. You'll be back at the... because by that time you've covered up 5 and 7, you've covered the 12 notes, you're back to square one. So, square one, right? Back to square one. Pretty interesting, right? So basically 7 tones, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, 7 of 12. So making a major scale or music starts with creating some structure and a little organization of 7 of 12. Now, I can get into, we can go further, deeper into, well, how does this 7 make music out of 12? Because that's where you really are if you're really, blind to music like I was. But let's skip that for now. You don't really need to know that to know what I'm going to tell you here. That can come up later when you master your fretboard and you're trying to turn it all into musical bits. Um, the But let's say it's just about tension and release. You create a small amount of tension here, a larger amount of tension, link them up with some really tense points here, and it creates a flow that leads your ear back to C. Leading your ear is what I mean. And if you once you really organize your music and you really start to listen to yourself, that's what happened to me. That's how I started to understand when people say leading. I was like, at the beginning, I was like, well, what does that even mean, leading? Because I never really pictured what music, how it worked, why it did what it did to me, and how these artists would, turned, sound into emotion. Anyways, so it's about tension and release, and so there's your 3 and your 4 concept, which now shows up on your guitar, and you need to know that to know this, and you need to know this to know the 2 shapes on your guitar, because you're always going to be here, or I'm going to give you a sneak peek at the next one, or there. Okay, let's get back here. I think there's something else I wanted to say. So 4 of 7. So now we've got 7 notes of the major scale that we need. We're going to need this, this, and this to navigate our fretboard on any improv over a D minor chord, over a D major chord, over a C, dominant 7th, and all those chords come from being able to improv over chords, knowing when keys change, knowing when keys don't change, knowing how to noodle around and play over chord tones, all stems from knowing your major scale and knowing it on your fretboard. So with knowing that, we've just uncovered the B, C, and E, F pattern on the fretboard, that the guitar makes big use of this handy-dandy factoid or part of the major scale. The B, C, and E, F areas are very important for the structure of the major scale on the guitar. That link up area is where, I'm trying to find my handy dandy guitar pick here. Not very musical yet, but it's where the that point, it's where that is. Comes up to be a little more important later. So this part here, let's expand this a little bit now. There's a rule involved in it, but first let's go with show you something here where let's just turn this into music, since I've been rambling for about 5 minutes here. Let's get down to brass tacks here and turn this into some initial music that you've probably played this square without realizing it 4 million times already in any jam you have ever done on the guitar, because you may realize, or may have not realized, this is a very, very common shape. So let's just look at this shape right now. Here's a rule to know about this shape. This shape always precedes and is followed by, whichever way you want to look at it, these 2 notes right here will always be around this square. There's no note here, no note there, no note there, no note there, no note, no note, no note. All right, so let's play that real fast. Well, let's let you see it too. So haven't you always played this on your guitar? Here, let me put it up where you can see it. I've got this note of the square on the 12th fret of the A string, 12th fret of the D string. Anyways, once I play that part, now that I know what I've created here, what I found out here, once I played that part, I know where the rest of the major scale is on the entire fretboard. As long as I can find this square anytime I jam, and it doesn't sound like this unusual set of notes here would be able to be found in almost every tune you hear on the radio. Um, it doesn't sound like it would be, but if you can find that, you've found the major scale. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you another hint here. This one right here is the Ionian note, or the root note, or the main note, or the root note of the basic major scale. It's always this square. It's never this square. It's never this square. It never changes no matter what key. If you change the notes, the pattern stays the same. It may not seem like it does that at first, like it must jumble around. That's why, because your brain thought that. That's why you were initially confused about learning the major scale, but lock into some hard and fast rules. That's one of them. So you've heard that before, and if you recognize that as the top or the bottom, the top of the major scale, or I'm sorry, the top of the Aeolian minor scale, I just played that from the A note on the fretboard, the fifth on the E string. The Aeolian scale. If you go to the bottom of the Dorian scale, there's the square again. Now, the as we went up the Dorian scale, that if you know that already from your guitar teacher's teachings, then that leads a lot of confusion right there. Like, why is it called the Dorian scale? Don't worry about that. It's just for this example. I just need to be able to tell you this. You'll understand all that as this moves forward. But that gets confusing because there's the names of the shapes that your guitar taught you are correct. They name that shape properly and help you identify a shape, a scale pattern. However, it's what they don't tell you, no one ever tells you, is that's not really the key to creating Dorian music. Like, the Dorian shape is the Dorian shape, but it's not the same as creating music in Dorian. It's all the same notes, but the shape isn't creating the sound of the special mood. That's created in other ways that we discuss in other videos. So, but don't worry about that. Don't let that, just go over, follow along here. This is where I like to make pre-recorded videos, because I avoid these little rambling parts where you start thinking of all these ways people could be getting lost, where they're probably not getting lost, probably just banging their heads wanting you to move forward in your explanation. Well, so there's that. Now, on the other side of this shape is always this. Always, always, always. So if I was playing here, try to get that in the screen there, I can always play here. Oh my gosh. Just played a stupid commercial jingle from a local commercial. Anyways, so as you see here, this shape made me what I know is the bottom of my Dorian shape, and then my Phrygian shape also as well. As soon as you move over to this part, if you're familiar with those single shapes, well, you just learned something about them. They contain the magic square. And if that's not important now, it should be in a couple seconds. Let's move on. So, that's rule number one, that this shape is always in front of the shape. And so, this is, I think, important because, most of your rock guitar riffs are happening on two strings. I'm never just thinking about one. I'm always thinking about... sorry for being off camera there, but anyways, the you usually think about two strings, and so that helps there. Give you a little riffology right there with those. It's a little basic, but it's gets you moving around, and now you know why when you're jamming there. And then you're going to soon be free to rip out of there into other places, so that can be very handy to know. Rule number 2, moving forward, right? Rule number 2 with this 4 square box. The 4 square box always links, always links in this direction. Which is interesting. Something interesting about linking in this direction is it's a tritone direction. If this is a root, this is always a flat fifth. Root, flat fifth, root, devil tone, root, the devil notes, right? In old classical music theory, now known as the tritone. Much more common, much more useful these days in blues music, in those concepts, and in jazz and everything else, but not something we need to know too much today, but just an interesting tidbit that it always links along a tritone row, square and square. If you've got a square here, you've got a square here, you've got a friend. So if I have a square here, first rule, I could be up here. Let me try to get this right in the camera there. Sorry. Let's get this right over here. Let's go right here. First, I'll start here before the square. You can see the I moved the square under my 1 and 2 fingers, so that if the square links as I showed, that it should be here. And as you know the octaves on a guitar, it makes sense. So think about where you just expanded on the fretboard. You went from being able to play not only on these 2 strings, but being able to jump up onto these 2 strings and play right here. Give yourself a little more leeway. And, you know, you play that a lot, and you're like, well, actually, gee, that sounds so familiar, like I've always played that. Well, it's just probably what you've always played, just never realized exactly the mechanics of what you were playing and where you were playing it. And once it gets imprinted in your mind's eye, it just becomes easier to jump here, jump there, because you're more comfortable, you're more familiar. Familiar is not feeling lost. Okay, you know, think how much faster you can drive around a neighborhood when you're familiar with all the twists and turns, and you know where all the stop signs are and the hidden nuances are. Okay, so there's what we need to know about our 4 square unit. Now, the final thing is that just one more second. The when you're ever in this square, or you're dancing around these parts around the square, you're tipping in, you're connecting right into, as a matter of fact, once you're in the square is made up of this next shape. This is the only other place you can be on the fretboard. There will be 2 other shapes to know, but those are combinations of this shape and this shape. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you one right now. If I let's get a new color here to outline it. So we talked about how this shape always links up to this shape, right? Okay. Now you have if you sometimes find yourself in the middle of these 2 shapes on the fretboard, you might find that these are the notes that work. You're basically here. You're in the split. you could be sometimes in between these two shapes, and you may know this shape. Shape might be familiar if you're thinking of the bottom of the Aeolian shape. I'm going to play Aeolian starting on the A note here, and I'm going to go in that shape. I just found this 4-square box system. I moved down. Down there, the box was there again, but it's in between the string shift area, so that's another problem. But we're going to go over that in a second. Now I'm down on the bottom 2 strings, and I just played that exact shape right there. E, F. And those 2 notes weren't, if you just were playing those on your guitar and you're like, hey, those didn't line up, that's because we're dealing with the string shift, which your brain has to get around. But let's learn the basics now without any string shift problems. This is the basic of your fretboard. Anywhere you are in this square. But sometimes you're going to be in an area that looks like this. I'm going to highlight this note here. You might be in this square. It's called the jail because it's 3 bars like a jail. So basically it's kind of neat. It just makes a simple pattern like this. Move this camera. Why? I've got this camera. Alright, that's much better right there. Anyways, you can get through there in a million different ways. Pretty basic, but you've jammed around that shape before, and now you know why you have, because that's basically the only other place you can be on the fretboard. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me show you this. This is where it all kicks together. Remember your 4-square shape? And remember how I said that once you're in one square shape, you're always in the other square shape? Well, if you're ever in that 4-square shape, guess where you are in relation to this shape? You're already in there, because that shape occurs in relation to this shape always right here, and it's always right there and never changes. So your root note, like we said, is always in that part of the box, so there's your root. And so what about when you get over here, though? Man, now you're lost. You don't know where you are, and guess what? Guess where that square, all you need to do is know where your other square is. If you were here, where's your next square? There's one down here. Aside from perhaps the string, the B string, shifting that over 1 fret this way, there would be another box right there, and another one of these shapes right there. Alright, and now, if you were over here, where do you go? Guess what? This shape always has 1. So from this side here, it goes there, and it's like the mirror image over here. Lots of geometry, lots of symmetry in your fretboard. It's amazing how much symmetry is once you graph everything out, and you realize how kind of geometrically complex the symmetry. There's symmetry on your guitar, but it's pretty complex. So here we have a kind of handy-dandy facet here that once you're here, you're here. So if you're here, you can be there, and if you're there, you can be there, and if you're there, you can be there. And these 2 places will lead you all across the fretboard, because that's all there is. This basic shape right here that I drew, let's go over how many notes there were as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How many notes do we need in a scale? 7. So here's 9, so we have a redundancy of 2, and here's the octave. If this was a G, this would be a G, and if this was an A, this would be an A. So now we have, not counting these 2 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at how it all works out. There's your major scale. So G, A, B, and because I started with G here on purpose, I've outlined the major scale, and if this looks like the top of a G Mixolydian scale that your guitar teacher taught you, well, it's all starting to click. G, A, B, now C, D, E is here, and F gab starts here. Neat, look at that. And if you move this down to, move this over one, if you were on your fretboard and you just moved it all over, the concept over, you would be playing the G sharp, the C sharp, the F sharp, but it would all still be in the same, they would still be in relation to each other, the same, it would be its own major scale, which would basically be the C sharp major scale, because your root note here, the 4 squares, the root note, would be up on C sharp. Wherever this note lands, wherever you put this box, is where you create the root of the scale. So if you need a G Ionian scale, you put the G there, or you put that on G. If you need F, you put that on F. If you put E, you put that on E. Does that make sense to you? If you need D sharp, you put that on D sharp, and you will have a major scale. You know, and just as a little side note from there, all you need to do is map this out. Once you map out your, here's for your 4, we need 3 more notes to create 7 notes. So 4 minus 7 is not anything I need right now, but 7 notes minus 4 notes is 3 notes. So we need 3 notes. Here's another rule of this square here. Let's tap on and tack on 2 notes here. They always tack on here. If this was C and B, C, and E, F, this would be the always be the A, and this would always be the G. Just like here, G, C, you can see G, C, F, G, C, F. It'll always work out that way. And so what we got here is failure to communicate. No, what we got here is, notice this, we were able to tack on 2 notes. Where does the, we're missing a note here. Let's see. C, oh look, there's no D. We got everything else. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Where's the D? So the D is your magic note. Remember in the beginning I put a dot right here, said, hey, hold on, we're going to talk about that. Well, that's a neat little magic that shows up there. Hey, look, there's the D right there. And it's right in the middle of your square. The only D is like that. The only note that doesn't connect on the guitar. It's your farthest away note. It's the star in the sky that's not connected to the main constellation. So the D is always out on its own. Not a big deal, but it's an interesting facet. Comes up in other parts of your playing, but so your D, and then another key thing about it is always on this part and this side of the square. So remember, remember your rule of the square always has a wall here and a wall there. This is always the same note. It's always the number 2 note. If you're on the key of C, in the key of C, put the C there, then this becomes the D. And your D is always going to be a D. And if that was a K note, that would always be a K. You know, if that was the, I know there's no K, right? But if that was in, just to be, try to get you to understand, if this was an E, that would always be an E. Okay. So, that being said, so that's your, you can kind of always know that your 2 always mounts there. So create there and there and there, and see how this can all, once you understand that, if I was to draw out a major scale, if I was playing, this would be all in my head. I'd be able to know, well, this is going to be here, this is going to be here, this is going to be here. And after you get really familiar with this, then you're going to be able to see how this was the shapes that your guitar teacher taught you. And sometimes if it's whatever's not making sense will be overlapped by another thought. Like sometimes I get to an area where this information I just can't think fast enough in my improv, but I happen to know that, well, I'm an Aeolian, so there I just run around there, and then I know how to get to over to Dorian, and after a while you're not going to think about any of this anymore. It's just going to become the, oh yeah, oh, I can do that now. But in the beginning you need a way to get over just the big complexity of it all, and this is it, graphing it out, making it mind's eye stable, making the information stable. It's another thing. You can't have, like, you know, I also teach people how to drive, and one of the keys to teaching people how to drive is this simple thing of this. You've heard it all before. Keep it simple. The only way to get complex stuff done in a hurry is to have simplified the information in your head. Like, it can be pretty complex, especially when you get nervous, your brain only wants simple information, much like I teach people stop, drop, and roll is a concept where you might be nervous and you can't think about all the different ways to put out flames. It's not going to work. But if you say stop, drop, and roll, if you've pre-programmed yourself to know this, a bad situation can be avoided. So a wrong note can be avoided if you know simple things about your fretboard. Simplified information that you can access quick. Hey, what's here? Oh yeah, this is this. Anyways, so that's the basics of it. With that basic bit of information, knowing about this square and this area right here, I can get around my fretboard anywhere, no matter what key I'm in. As long as I've mounted my shapes properly, I can just rely on this shape information without knowing notes, because I don't have to rely on them. The shape will always get me to the right note, much like the on the piano keyboard. If you're playing a song that entails all the white keys, you don't even have to know what notes are those white keys. The fact that they're all on the scale will make them all somewhat musical. Here you go. Using your ear and some knowledge of the notes will help you avoid, will help you get around and make it more musical even. But it's hard to not be musical. You can sort of be unmusical. There's, certain tones do sound better than others in their own major scale, but you're not hitting any wrong notes. Just knowing this information, and then you can start honing in on the notes that you like per the chord that's playing in the background. Alright, so here if you want to go that way, then it's basically, here's the shape we talked about a few minutes ago. If you want to go that way or that way, you're always thinking this. I'm always linking my square shape up to this square shape. And if I felt like I was in the middle of playing this, I just adjust. Let's say I was just in the middle of here and like, oh no, where's my squares? Well, I know where my squares are. They're connected here and here. So once I'm in a square, I can move diagonally. Let's say I just want to move up the strings after this shape butts up this shape. And then after this shape is done, you're back to this shape. If you want to just move linearly straight down a pair of strings down the fretboard, I drew it down here. Let's look at this. There you go. It's a little bit light. It's not very dark, but here's your 4 square. It's pretty basic. You'd never realize just how stupidly basic the complexity of the guitar fretboard really is. And like I said, this doesn't ruin music. This creates more of a playground. This makes the playground familiar. Now you know where to run and hide, and where the fun parts are and where the avoid parts are. Alright, so there it is. Once you move past the split shape, which all this is the split, this means that when you see this means that there's a box here and a box here. And if there's no string there, well, then that's how it rolls. Oh, here's another rule. Let's say this is the bottom string and you're at the split. Anytime the bottom, one of the strings, top or bottom, splits, that means directly above it there is a set of squares. So for example, if these two right here were there, like basically the square was up here but there's no string there, that would mean that the square exists down here. I guess that's next. We'll plug that into the fretboard next. So were we done? Were we done on this page? Yeah, I think we were. Oh, so when these combine, you have this. We just talked about that. Now, the final thing you have to know is the pesky B string shift. This will take your normal box and make it look like this. And you may have seen that in part of the Aeolian scale. Let's see if I can draw that out really quick here. 1, 2, 3. Oh my god. There's one too many there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That scale goes, or that little broken box goes right here. Then we have this part goes, oh my god, I'm off screen here, sorry. Okay. Broken box right here. Then we've got this part right here, because anytime a box is there, another box forms right here. But we're out of strings. This would be the E string right here. E. This would be E, A, D, G, B, E. And this is the A string. Don't mind the lack of proper frets there. But anyways, so if this was Aeolian, we know we've got one here. We know our shape looks like this and like that. And lo and behold, at the very top here, we should find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We should find a square of notes. What do you know? This would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Look at that, B, C, E, F square. So that would be B, C. That would be A. And this would be the B, C, E, F square. So there's all remaining is a G. And A, B, C, D, and there you go. You have you can see how your squares will plug into your minor scales. So let's plug this all into a fretboard and get done with this video here, and I'll get on with my day, and you guys can get on with yours and get another upload to my channel done, which I'll be happy about, even though it's rambly and long, not concise like I like to make them. Here you go. So, you know what though? See, I started making, it easy for you guys, C major, but let's go way different here. Let's say, and I'm going to give you a final tidbit of information, really, kick this lesson up one more notch here. It's a special code for your square system here. Here you have the, we can do it just doing this. Here's your square. Here's your wall, your front wall and your back wall. Always part of the other part. So, for example, if we were to create the scale, we'll just go here and here and here. So, here's a special code for you. These notes, you could put the cool thing is you can plug in all kinds of things that you need to know. If it's note names, you need to know you're in some kind of scale and you want to know all the note names, write them in the boxes. If you want to know the numbers, like this is the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6. So you want to learn where a 1, 4, 5 is, then you label all the numbers in here. Let's say you want to know modes. We're going to talk about modes really quick. You could put little letter names in here for the modes, like I, and then Dorian, and the next one is always Phrygian, and then the next one from there is Lydian, and Mixolydian, and Aeolian, and then this would be the octave, so this would be a Mixolydian, Aeolian, and then Locrian. Now Locrian can get confused with L for Lydian, so I always put a little LX in there because Locrian is the one that we don't really have to bother with. We don't really have to worry about it a lot. And we know Locrian is always in our 4-square box. Oh, and we know our box is always the LL for Locrian and Lydian are here, and then IP. Phrygian and Ionian are always here. You can kind of find your own way to remember that. LL, whatever, IL, LP, whatever you do. It won't take too long to memorize this stuff. Since it's another thing, you notice my method here is just makes it basic because you can memorize basic pretty easy. And so you're trying to memorize things, make them memorization basic, and all of a sudden you can do what you need to do and what you need to know on your entire fretboard. So, we've got this little pattern here helps us know if we put this on a root note, that creates a Dorian scale. If I make that my go-to note, that's Dorian. Or if I want to, I said that wrong. I said it right, but it didn't help you make music. If I want to make music, if someone says, "Hey Mark, let's play in A Mixolydian." Oh man, A Mixolydian. Boy, I really don't know that, man. I only learned G Mixolydian. No, it doesn't have to be like that. All I need to do, he said, A sharp Mixolydian. Is that what you really said? Oh man, A sharp. Sounds so hard, but all I have to do is take my Mixolydian note and put it over the A sharp. That means that my scale pattern, this pattern, will be lined up properly to sound like I'm playing in Mixolydian over in that key. And actually, I said it'll make me sound like I'm playing in Mixolydian, but that was backwards. Actually, it'll just make me sound correct. What's going to make me sound, define me, is actually Mixolydian from correct. Correct is good, but I was just going to say, I was going to keep on going, but I'm like, this will confuse people. I just know it will. All I have to do is line this up, and it'll make the root note makes it Mixolydian. So for example, if I'm playing all the white keys, that's the key of C, so C Ionian. So here's a cool thing to know. If I want to make that Dorian, and here's why you get confused over learning modes while we're at it. Basically, the correct explanation of telling someone a Dorian scale, say, oh, okay, well, you want to take one key, so let's say the white keys are a key, and instead of starting from this note here, the one of the three, the do, re, mi, start on re. So instead of starting on do, start on re. Anyways, and it tells, that's basically going from D to D could be expressed as a scale that's got it's called Dorian. It makes sense to call it that, but it's not making Dorian music. And this is where what everyone who's asking about modes is really asking, how do I make Dorian music? Okay, it's as simple as this. Forget about knowing any other scale. Just play the parent scale. Remember, all modes are derived from the Ionian parent, and it's just a decision everyone's made that Ionian is the major scale. But if you're wondering why, because it's C, why can't it just be A to make it confusing? That's because a long time ago, let's not go there. Sorry, but the A was the A minor scale was like the regular scale, and everything else was something else. And then it kind of got used to people. People kind of migrated toward a major sound as like the basic home scale. So then it was now C, in the key of A minor, which used to be the regular scale. So now it's C. But anyways, just forget I even said that, because I just confused the shit out of half my audience. So let's not even go there. Let's start here. You want to make a mode. All I need to do, if I play the C, the basic 1, that's my bass. So everything I play off that bass is going to sound like that particular mode. Major and happy, and that's what that sounds like. Now we're going to play the next chord up, the D, and I'm going to play the same exact notes, even perhaps the same melody, but it's going to sound totally different. Now I did two things. I ended on the D note, and I started on one of its chord tones, and I ended on the D note to hammer home, along with the low note playing, the same exact white keys of the C major scale became D Dorian by themselves. I'm not playing sad, I'm just playing the same, just trying to be rhythmically different over using the same palette of notes, And what makes it sad or happy is basically the chord that's playing in the background. So it's either the chord you're choosing or the background band is choosing. You, as the accompanying soloist, don't have to play or don't have to think in a specific mode. It's going to develop based on the background chords. You just have to find the right pool of notes, and the way to find the right pool of notes anytime, anywhere on the guitar is to know this jazz right here. As long as I say this is the root note, I just hit a C sharp, and now when I play C sharp Mixolydian, yeah, on a keyboard here, Lydian. Anyways, on a keyboard here, I would have a little, here it is. Oops. Anyways, harder on for me to, but I'm not a keyboardist, so I don't need to know all that. But on my guitar, C sharp Mixolydian is absolutely no problem, because I know I'm going to play Mixolydian if I put C sharp over this note, and this pattern will become all the notes I need for C sharp Mixolydian. And even if you can't think about how that could even work right now, just trust it, because that's the way, and it never changes, and you'll start to be able to get it. Once you can make music with it, you're going to have fun with this information. Here's the next key. See, this gets you to make music really quick and be able to go, oh, okay, look at this, makes this sound. And then you can quickly, or by your own practice, start linking up sounds with these concepts. And once your brain starts linking together sounds and concepts, because they seem to be locking in with each other and never changing, all of a sudden you'll just be in a new area that you won't know how you got there, but your brain got so familiar with all the stuff. So C sharp Mixolydian, let's find that C sharp note. That's A, that's B, that's C. This must be C sharp. Now my Mixolydian note is there. So if I play a C sharp drone note on my keyboard here, I've got a C sharp drone note, so I gotta get a selection here that'll be, let's see, 33. And I'm gonna create that drone here by pressing the sustain key on the keyboard. Here is one. Went a little chromatic there at the end. But hopefully you heard me outlining the sounds of Mixolydian, because a couple key tones there suggested Mixolydian versus Ionian, because there's only one note difference, but you'll know that once you start jamming around on all that stuff. It's not something we need to know today to get this lesson a little tightened up here. I'm sure I've been talking 40 minutes now, something around this order. I hope this helped. I hope this was a little more concise than my other rambling video, even though I probably rambled here. Let me know what I can do better. Let me know what questions you have. Please, please, please subscribe. Leave comments, leave questions, be negative. No, don't be negative, but I do take it all as constructive criticism. I mean, I make mistakes, things are sucky, the video sucks, the voice is crap, but you should know I'm using a Radio Shack condenser mic from 1987. I think it came with a cassette tape recorder or something, and preamp not made to do exactly what I'm doing with it, but it's kind of working. So, but your support on Patreon will upgrade all this equipment to a real document scanner and a real microphone, where I could really upgrade these videos and just give you everything you need to know, as long as I could get some patronage from you guys. Make it so it's something worth it to people. If this isn't worth it to people, why should I pursue this? I could actually just keep this secret and move myself ahead in the world, but I'd like to open the doorway for other guitarists. I like music in the world, and I think everyone's got their own music to share, and I take a special joy in unlocking some of that talent in people. It's just really something to be able to give someone a new emotional pathway is pretty strong for people in many cases. So I like to do that, and if you think that's cool, I would appreciate or just so love your support on Patreon. I have a job every day that I work, and it's a job that I'm going to soon have to leave because it's crazy. It's taught me a lot, but it's got too much baggage with it. It's being a driving instructor, and there's two bad things about it. Number one, the school I work for has a negative atmosphere. There's nothing positive. There's nothing uplifting and great about it. It's not it's being purposefully run in a certain way to make money. Money is the dominating factor, and because of that, it's lacking a whole bunch of things. So we're not going to go there. And then there's the frightening aspect of these certain people who usually they mean well, but they don't have a good grasp on the English language, and they aren't trying to be frightening, but you can't reason with them. You can't explain logical things to them, and some of these students, you've explained it a few times, and they even acknowledged what you said, and will still put you in frightening situations around other traffic, even though they were told not to do that, and you're trying your best to try to stay in places where you can avoid those situations. It's unavoidable most days, and every day I get home and I dream about making lessons every day, and I can't function after work because my nervous system is so shot. All I can do is sit home and just veg and rebuild my intellect for the next attack at work, and it's an endless cycle. I'm sick of it. It's very just destructive, emotionally destructive for my creativity. It's taught me a lot about my anger and use of mental energy, and I think I've gotten to the point where I know what I need to know, and I'm ready to move on. And I've got some other things on the horizon, but those all take away from my ability to do this. I'd love my ability to do this all day, every day. I could really make a powerful bunch of videos here if I could get some support on Patreon. So I'm sure that's all you want to hear me rambling about. You helping me out on Patreon. There will be rewards. I haven't figured them out yet. Usually, probably a private stream of videos, maybe some private lesson capability, something like that, to make it worth your while. But that won't know until I get if that kicks off, then I'll know. So I'm just gonna have to go with that, and hope you'll check out all those things. They're all in the links below, and I hope that this helped you today. So have a great day. Thanks for watching. Leave any questions or comments below. Have a great day.